Hello, I'm Chara, a Splatoon 3 competitive player and content creator, and I've been playing top-level Splatoon 3 for about a month now, so I wanted to try to think about what changes would be best balance-wise for the game. We know there'll be an update coming very soon, so I wanted to take a look at it from my own angle and think about what changes I'd want to see, mostly focused on giving more counterplay and buffing weaker options without too much nerfs, because I think the main weapon balance especially is very good right now. This of course won't be every change I want, but the ones that are most important where if I were given the chance to make this patch, this is what I would do. With that being said, subscribe to see more theoretical patches from me, and let's get right into the changes. I'll be starting out with the specials, since I think they're a very important part of this patch. First up is going to be nerfs to the Booyah Bomb. Its HP will be reduced slightly from 470 to 450. Since we're not running 4 shooters anymore at high level play, the HP is basically a bit higher than it was before since we're running more weapons that struggle to shred it, and reducing a little bit will make it a bit easier to shred on your own. On top of that, the max duration will be reduced from 9 to 7 seconds. This means if you're, say, holding a Booyah Bomb to try to throw it at the tower, you can stall for 2 seconds less long. This should lead to less special stalling and more fights happening quickly. Big Bubbler is a similarly powerful HP special, especially since we've seen a lot of use on it on Junior, a weapon that can't even fight very well with it yet, which means there's more potential for when something like a splatter shot might get it in the future. Part of the reason I like the special's design is its value is tied to where you place it. If you try to go further forward to place your Big Bubbler, you're putting yourself at more risk, but getting it off will give you more reward. This to me is integral to the special's design, and well, being able to place it on the tower that moves forward kind of breaks that. Now, to be fair, the special does have a lower duration on the tower, being around 9 seconds instead of 15, but I still found it far too high for being able to protect a moving objective that will give you more space, so I'm going to reduce it down to 5 seconds. Additionally, I've reduced the total HP slightly from 2440 to 2300. It sounds like a lot, but remember the top of the shield does allow you to do 2 times the damage with it. The max HP of special power-up will remain unchanged though, so if you want to invest gear into the special, you can get your higher HP, which introduces more gear dependency for those using it. Finally, on the special nerfs is Tentamissiles. This special has been common even on weapons that really just spam it, and I would like to rework it as a whole, which is a concept I haven't quite completed just now, but I want to do a more realistic, just a simple nerf thing that would be more likely for us to see. First off, the missiles can no longer be charged until the previous ones have landed. This is how Killer Whale 5.1 works, and it's very weird that Missiles doesn't, and would reduce its overall spammability. The main nerf, however, is reducing the damage from 30, 50, and 150 for the small, medium, and up-close hitbox respectively to 20, 40, and 60. This means that the missiles would not be as good at damage per second to objects, but most importantly, you would be able to tank much more missile hits, meaning you can trade off not moving in some situations in order to have a bit of damage that would make you more susceptible to things like bombs. This provides more options to the person actually fighting the special, which I think would make it feel a lot better. Oh, and with the decreased damage, we can remove the 50% damage reduction to the Rainmaker shield, meaning against that specifically, it should do around the same damage it does right now. Finally, for the negative changes is Ink Vacuum. The absorption hitbox on this special is super weird and kind of covers your sides for some reason, which I think is a bit unfair and means the counterplay to the special is a bit too difficult. So now the absorption hitbox will be at the end and not cover your sides, though it will still cover the front of the user. However, Vacuum is more in the middle of the pack when it comes to specials right now, so a buff to compensate to this will be the damage of the shot, and the explosion afterward will now increase based on the amount of ink you absorb. This will scale from the lowest of 120 to a maximum of 180. Keep in mind this is for both shots, meaning they apply a lot more damage to other objects, such as dealing with Big Bubbler shields or popping the Rainmaker, which gives new utility to the special and adds more depth and reward to full charging the Vacuum. Finally, let's look at the 2 weakest specials in the game and give them a little bit of buffs. Reef Slider will now be able to run over any sort of bomb and splash wall, since it is invincible. This means it won't be countered as easily by something like a Splat Bomb at its feet. That's a very reliable way to kill it right now. On top of that, we will slightly reduce the end lag by 5 frames. It's a bit too easy to be punished right now, since unlike Baller in Splatoon 2, you don't get any invincibility frames when you explode, which is a good idea, but I think it's just a bit too harsh right now. Last up is the Ultra Stamp. First of all, this special is quite buggy in terms of its hitbox actually working, so we're going to assume that all of those would be fixed in this change. But even with that, the special would still be a bit weak, so we're going to increase the swing speed by 5% in rush mode. That might not seem like a lot, but keep in mind this affects your damage to objects, how fast you move in the special, and the protection hitbox would stay in the middle of you, protecting you a little bit more. Next up are the sub-weapons, where we have entirely buffs to non-bomb weapons. First up being the Line Marker. I feel like for how difficult this sub-weapon is, hitting it and only doing 30 damage is not that rewarding, so we're going to increase it by 10 to 40 damage, meaning it's much more reliable as a finishing blow. I'm also going to give the sub a new property. This will automatically paint the user's feet when thrown, similar to Torpedo, which can help slower weapons. Up next is Point Sensor. This effect really isn't unique to the sub at all, and so I'm going to give it a more unique effect to give more reasons to use it, which is that it'll now show the exact main weapon and the percent they're charged for their special on the minimap while located. Toxic Mist I think could use a little bit more depth, so from now on, if you hit the enemy directly with your Toxic Mist, it'll stick to them for 2.5 seconds. Even if it's half the duration, this is a lot more valuable than something they can move out of quite quickly. To make it easier to land Toxic Mist, we'll be increasing the velocity by 50%, meaning it'll travel through the air a lot faster. Finally is Sprinkler. While this sub-weapon is made to paint for a long duration of time, it decreases so quickly in the potency of its paint that it's not really worth to leave it out for long enough. So from now on, Mode 2 will last an entire 10 seconds longer, meaning you'll have good paint for a lot longer. The sub will also now show a message when destroyed, giving you a possible indicator to where an enemy might be, and giving you a little bit more options with the sub. Next up, some small changes to abilities. First off, Last Ditch Effort. This gives you 8 whole subs worth of Ink Saver main, Ink Saver sub, and Ink Recovery up when the time is below 30, or when the objective is below 30, and it even starts activating at 50 or lower. This is the most broken ability in the game, and encourages a bit too much bomb and paint spam. So instead of applying a maximum of 8 subs, it will now apply 6. This also means it'll scale lower at 50 points going down, since it can't go as high. Funny enough, Opening Gambit, an ability very similar to Last Ditch Effort, is easily the worst in the game, since it's very easy to wait out, and then you've basically lost an entire main ability slot. This ability will now last 60 seconds instead of 30 seconds by default, meaning it'll be way longer for you to actually get value out of, and way harder for the enemy team to just wait the first 30 seconds out. Getting a kill or assist will now increase the duration of this ability from 7.5 seconds to 10 seconds, meaning they're a bit more rewarding. Finally, while not a gear ability, it's still somewhat of an ability, Squid Surge. This takes way too long to charge up and doesn't see too much use outside of specific locations, so the charge speed will be increased by 15%. Keep in mind the max charge with Intensify will remain unchanged. This will just mean it's a bit easier to use if you're not running a weapon that stacks a lot of that ability. Finally, we're going to be buffing some of the weaker main weapons of the game, starting with Gootuber. While this saw some use due to having 10 missiles, with that nerfed we can put some power back into the main weapon. First off, a small quality of life change. Gootuber can kill with partial charges, but it's hard to tell the exact percent, so the area of a partial charge that will kill will now be highlighted as a small indicator. However, I mainly want to improve the charge hold gimmick, so from now on, you can use your sub-weapon without dropping your actual charge hold, meaning you have much more potential for unique plays and uses with the weapon, such as poking with your sub-weapon while being able to have a full charge at the ready. Next up is the Bamboo. Without main power-up, this thing dropped off a ton, for a variety of reasons, and I feel like it really should have better damage, to at least be able to shred objects and combo a little bit quicker with 2 partial charges. So its tap shots will be increased from 30 to 35, and the full charges from 85 to 90 damage. This also basically means whatever quantity you're charging will do 5 damage more than it does right now. Tri-Stringer, while not a bad weapon by any means, still struggles to play to its strengths. We'll be increasing its mid-air charge speed by about 50%, meaning it'll be easier to go for jump shots without having to charge more of the weapon first, increasing its speed by just a little bit. Octobrush is up next with another small change. It'll be given the same permanent resistance to enemy ink while rolling that Inkbrush has, because there's really no reason this one doesn't have it. All umbrellas right now really struggle due to a variety of bugs that should also be fixed, but most importantly here, these weapons are supposed to be threatening in a 1v1 setting, and with their terrible damage, for the most part, they really aren't, so we're going to be changing that here. Both the normal, undercover, and 10 umbrella will all be receiving damage buffs. Both 10 and normal umbrella will have the damage nerfs from Splatoon 2 reverted, meaning 10 will go from 119 to 122.5 damage, meaning each of its pellets will be doing 17.5 damage instead of 17. Umbrella will go from 81 to 90 damage, and each of its 5 pellets will go from 16.2 to 18 damage. And finally, Undercover will get the damage buff it's needed for far too long now, going from 40 to 45, which will also increase its 4 pellets from 12 to 13, since this weapon has a cap on its maximum damage. Second to last is the L3 Nozzle Nose. This is the only semi-automatic weapon to have a form of jump RNG, and I really don't see a reason for it to have it. We'll also be changing the weapon from medium to lightweight, since it's literally the light Nozzle Nose, making it slightly faster. These are pretty drastic changes though, so we'll be reducing the ink efficiency by 5% to make sure it's not spamming special too much. Finally is the Splattershot Pro. While this is a jack-of-all-trades weapon, it does everything a little bit too poorly. Something like the Splattershot could do most things well, so we'll be increasing the fire rate from 8 to 7 frames. This means it'll have slightly better paint, slightly better mobility, slightly better damage per second, and so on. It will be a little bit more ink hungry though, but I think that's a fair trade-off. And that's it for me. Yep, no points for special changes. I don't think anything really needs it since the default was increased to 200. Not much really spams special anymore. The only thing I would really worry about in future here is chargers, but that's more of a map issue that I'll have to talk about another time. For now, I think these are good changes, and I'm happy with the game in its current state. It'll be really interesting to see what we get for the first patch and what the devs are trying to do. Let me know what you guys think and what other changes you would make, and I'll see you all next time.